Welcome to the Bourbon and Brands podcast, where we have simple conversations with successful people over a glass of our favorite brown spirit, bourbon. What's up, my bearded brother? How are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Rhett Seekins in the studio tonight with Select Construction, man. It's good to have you in. I do have a little beard envy, but I'll be all right with that. You got the thickness that I've always wanted, and my sides are a little thin, but I try to hide those on camera. But
I've never looked at you and thought, man, that guy's beard is a little thin.
Well, I appreciate that. Means a lot to me coming from you. But man, it's good to have you, man. I've followed you on social and what you've been doing with your business, and I mean, you've been a part of kind of the local scene here where we're at in Burleson, Texas, for 8-9 years or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. You've been around for a while, and so it's one of those things to see, you know, whenever you see, especially a marketer and social media guy like myself, when you see companies doing it right on social media, it really gets you excited. And so it's like, man, not only does this guy have a great beard, but he's got a great brain, and that's really good for business. And so thanks for stopping in, man. You told me Makers was one of your favorite whiskeys, and so we've got the core Makers lineup right here, the 4 core offerings that they have: the original, the OG over there with the paper label, the 46, the Cask Strength, and then the Maker's Mark 101. So we'll kind of dig into these as we go, but we've got the 46, and you've had this one before, right?
Yep.
So what do you think about the 46? Is it kind of a staple for you?
Man, honestly, when I started drinking Makers, I used to always do Diet Coke and mix it. And I always felt like Makers was the best with Diet Coke.
Yeah.
That just the taste of it. I would try to mix other things, like, I mean, you got Buffalo Trace back there and other stuff with Diet Coke, and it never really tasted the same. And so that's how I got, like, you know, set on Maker's Mark was my thing.
Yeah.
And then I just got rid of the Diet Coke part.
Yeah.
I was like, why even waste the room?
Yeah.
And I just like sipping on it. It never fails you, you know. I like trying new things. I've got a lot of things in my collection, but that's just always been my go-to.
The old reliable. So, I mean, that sounds like the story of how a lot of people start in their whiskey journey, is like kind of tipping their toe in the water a little bit, add a little bit of a cocktail mix to it, or a Coke or a soda or something, and kind of get started that way. But yeah, I really like some of the stuff that Makers has presented. I'm not a huge fan of the original, but the 46 and some of these newer offerings that they've been coming out with are pretty spot on for me and my palate. But the 46 was their first different whiskey that they've ever produced. I mean, it was always just the standard Maker's Mark forever, since they were started in 1959, I think is when it was. Don't quote me on that. I may be wrong, but 1950s, I think, somewhere in there, when they started up and were founded by the Samuels family. It was just that Maker's Mark is their bread and butter, and they're like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is all we're doing. And then finally later on, down the road, they started thinking, hey, how can we do something different? And so that 46 came out. So, but yeah, I'm the fan of the 46 so far, man. I've really enjoyed it. I've had it a couple times before, but, so tell me a little bit about
what's your favorite?
Oh man, you're going to ask me that question with a guy that loves whiskey as much as I do. It's hard to pick a favorite, but, I've got favorites as far as different categories. We'll put it that way.
This is my favorite, like, you know, daily. I'm going to have a sip of this. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, you know, of all time that I've ever had. So I would say my equivalent to that would either be Old Forester 1920, would be one of my favorite, kind of shelf available. You can go in any liquor store and find it, and it's reasonably priced, you know, less than $45. You know, I feel like that's a reasonable price for whiskey. And it's fantastic. So that would be one. I mean, if you can find Eagle Rare, back in the day, it was a great everyday drinker, but something happened along the way over the last couple of years, and it's just caught fire, and it's super hard to find. And when you do find it, it's typically price gouged to all get out. But
that really suits my palate. For a 10-year whiskey at that price, what it's supposed to be retailed at like $30. I mean, it's hard to beat. Mm-hmm. Finding a 10-year whiskey at $30 is next to impossible to find. So, other than that, man, I really like the 1792 stuff. So I kind of just depends on the mood, really. Every evening, if I'm going to sit down and sip some whiskey, man, I just kind of stand there and look around a little bit at the collection and just see what pops out, see what I'm in the mood for, and so go from there. But how long have you been in whiskey? When was that transition for you from, hey, I'm going to drop the Diet Coke and really start appreciating what the whiskey is by itself?
Honestly, just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I just, my buddy and I, we did, does the No Shave November.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine and I, we decided it was his idea. I'll give him credit. His name's Travis Chafin. He's my best friend.
Yeah.
He said, let's do no beer November. So we weren't going to drink any beer, which at the time that was our, go-to. If I went home, I'd crack a Coors Light or Miller or whatever. It was no beer November. So all we were going to do was try different, whiskeys and bourbons. And he wanted to try scotch and gin and all the different things. I could not find a single one of those things that I liked.
Right.
But we started, learning how to make an old fashioned and, Moscow mules and all that kind of stuff. So the whole month of November, and this was, I don't know, probably like 2018 or something like that. And that was really the time that I started, getting interest in bourbon.
Yeah.
And bourbon's really my thing. Whiskey, I have maybe like 2 bottles of whiskey in my collection. The rest is all bourbon. But so that's how I got introduced to it, and I've just gone from there.
Hey man, November seems to be the month for growing a great beard or joining the bourbon club, because that sounds like a pretty cool idea. No beer November. Hey man, I might need to try that next year, because I'm both a beer and bourbon fan, but kind of a beer is kind of like a midday, hey, it's hot outside, sitting around the pool. It's hard to drink some whiskey neat in a Glen glass sitting by the pool. You not only look like a dork, but it's super hot outside here in Texas. Right. It just tastes terrible.
Yeah.
But
no, there's nothing like a cold beer when you're mowing the grass.
Right.
Neat whiskey after you get done mowing the grass doesn't really hit the spotlight.
Doesn't do it, man. So you've been in Burleson most of your life, right? You've kind of been a Texas born and bred guy, but in Burleson, this area, man, what do you think about the growth? I mean, you've had to seen it over the last 30 whatever years you've been here. It seems like the people I've talked to, I'm relatively new to the area within the last 10 years, but just the growth has been crazy, and seeing it evolve into what it is today. Kind of, what was it like back then, kind of in those early days, just out of high school or when you were here?
I mean, it was small town.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that grew up here, and he's a musician. He wrote a song about Burleson. His name's Dusty Deaton.
Okay, I know Dusty.
You could look it up.
He's a good friend of mine. I love Dusty.
He has a song that he wrote about Burleson, and If you grew up here, there's a lot of things in that song that really hit home about how McAllister used to be a back road.
Yeah,
and so it has grown. I don't really, aside from the traffic and the time that it takes me to get down 174 so that I can get home. Other than that, I love the growth. You know, I love being part of something that's thriving.
Mm-hmm. It used to probably only take like 5 minutes to get down 174. Now it's a good hour.
I mean, you could get all the way through Joshua from 35 in 5 minutes.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, I like to be part of something that's thriving.
Yeah,
and Burleson is thriving. It would be for all the things that you could say, the negative things that you could say about growing up in a small town, and now there's all these people and all these businesses and all this traffic. There's way more negative that you could say about something that was just like, I drive through because of our business. We do a lot of work in a lot of different towns. Like yesterday I was in Houston and we're doing a job in Palestine. Yeah. And so from Palestine on the way home, I drove through these small towns that have businesses that at some point they were thriving.
Right.
And now they are, they're in ruins.
Right. Yeah.
And so it could be like that. I'd rather be part of something that's thriving and great and people are attracted to. I just saw on Facebook today that we're getting alley cats.
Oh, okay.
It's a bowling alley, miniature golf, laser tag, all that stuff, which my kids will love that.
Oh, where's that supposed to go?
They haven't said. They're actually voting on it. I think either tonight or tomorrow night they're voting on it in the city council. But I mean, that'll be cool.
That'll be cool. Because I don't know, does Burleson even have a bowling alley?
Burleson has been, the people of Burleson have been begging for some kind of like main event,
family
type,
focused,
Dave and Buster's type thing forever. And it's been a long time coming. I'm assuming it'll probably go over there on that like 1187, 35 area somewhere over there. But that's just my guess. Yeah.
With all the growth that Burleson has had, it's benefited your business because you're in the growing business, right? You're in the construction business. Mm-hmm. So tell me kind of where you started as far as that goes back in the early, 2013 or whenever it was, and kind of what transitions, what lessons you've learned along the way and kind of how you've gotten to where you are today.
I'll try to keep it short. It's a long story, but we started in 2013. I'd only been in the roofing business. My buddy had been trying to recruit me to come to work for a company that he worked for in Duncanville for about a year. Mm-hmm. He'd offered me like 3 different jobs. I had a good job at the time. And finally, he offered me a position that at the time didn't exist within their company, which intrigued me. It was something that I'd never done before, had no experience in, and there was no reason why they should hire me for this job except for the fact that he just believed in me mm-hmm. and knew that like I just need this guy like part of our company. And the job that they offered me was canvassing manager, which basically meant I would recruit a team of people to go and knock doors and set appointments for the sales guys to go and close the deals. Mm-hmm. I never knocked a door in my life. I come from construction and ministry, and so I had no clue. So I had to learn how to do it, and I did. And within about 2 months, our canvassing team was setting more appointments than the sales staff could even handle. Mm-hmm. And so they promoted me to branch manager, and that meant that I was over the sales team, the canvassing, within that branch, which was the corporate office. This was a nationwide company. They had offices all over the United States. And so early on, I realized that this was something, being an entrepreneur my whole life, that it was a business or an industry that I felt like I could be successful in. My daughter plays soccer, and on her soccer team, there was another dad that he was in the roofing industry, but mm-hmm. he was more on the back end, the finance side, for a big roofing company. Anyway, when we hang out, we'd have pool parties and stuff like that for the kids. We talked about roofing or whatever. And I think I mentioned one time that, eventually I'd want to start my own roofing company. And one day he called me up and said, hey, let's go have lunch. And so we met for lunch, and he basically proposed, like, let's go into business together. He said, you mentioned you wanted to start a company. Well, what's stopping you? Yeah. And I said, capital. Mm-hmm. At that time I didn't, have tons of money in the bank, and I've started businesses. I started a business with $33 in my bank account before. Yeah. And I've sold that business, and I swore that even though it was lucrative, I swore I would never do that again. It was the hardest thing that I've ever done. Yeah. And he said, okay, well, he said, what if I put up the money and you run the day to day, I'll handle the finances. And so I went home, wrote up a business plan, emailed it to him. We signed it and started.
Off to the races, huh?
That was October 2013, which is the worst time to start a roofing company. Is right after storm season. And, not knowing really anything about the industry or how it worked. It was tough in the beginning. But because of my my leadership skills and my ability to motivate and stuff like that. We grew really fast as far as our sales staff.
Yeah.
Being able to recruit people to come out and join our team, really too fast for the fact that neither one of us really knew how. This is totally different. The insurance restoration business is way different than retail. So like if I was just going and doing an addition on someone's house, I would get paid some money up front, and then as soon as I get done, I get paid the rest of it.
Okay.
With insurance restoration, you're waiting on the insurance company to cut your checks.
After the work's done.
And sometimes it could be a week, sometimes it could be a month, sometimes it could be 6 months. Wow. I mean, you're at the mercy of the insurance company. And so that was something that we had to learn, was cash flow.
Yeah.
And how those things worked, and making sure that we could pay our bills. And whenever you're doing, in your first year, you do $1.2 million in sales, and you don't really know how that cash flow works, and you're waiting on the insurance company to send you money, but you still have to pay your subs and for material and commissions to your sales guys. It was, it was tough. We realized that we grew a little bit too fast, so we started to dial it back. We changed some of the ways that we did things, which made some people leave the company because they didn't like change, which has become a big part of our culture. Is like, we tell everyone from the day they come on, like, if you don't like change, this is not the place for you. Because it is constant all the time. Yeah. We're always changing the way that we do things to make it better, make things flow easier.
So that's an interesting thought, because from a business standpoint, you often hear, of companies kind of finding their identity and who they are, and then not wanting to change some of those things. And so where was the balance for y'all when it comes to, there were obviously core values that you didn't want to change, like that's what your culture was built around.
No, we didn't have any culture or core values or anything at that time. Okay, so those came later.
So in kind of fast forwarding a little bit, how, the interesting question for a lot of business owners that may be tuned in is, how do you keep up with evolving trends and technology and different things that change? You need to change some areas of your business year after year, but there's a lot of your business that you don't need to change and you shouldn't change. And that's the more of the structure, the culture, the way that it is and the way it's built. And so, where did you get to that point in that journey of where you really feel like you found your identity as a company? Like, this is really who we are.
In 2017 is when we decided that we had learned enough about the business and the way the industry works, and we were ready to just go all in. And that was whenever I developed my why, and I think that was a big turning point for the company, because once you know your why and you know what's most important to you as the head of the company. I have a business partner, and he's amazing, but he is adamant about being behind the scenes and letting me, kind of run the show in the forefront. And once I discovered my why, I was able to develop core values and a mission statement and all that stuff that you need in order to have an identity that you can always look back to. You can always go back to saying, are we following this stuff? No matter what else goes on. I mean, there's going to be hardships. There's going to be people that leave. There's going to be, relationships that are lost and stuff. I mean, and business is hard, but as long as you can always look back to those things that are like, these are the most important things to us. And as long as we're sticking to that, then you stay on that right path. Even though there's changes as far as your processes and the way that you do things and all that stuff, those core values are what most important. And once I discovered my why, then that's when I was able to develop those core values.
Yeah. I mean, it had to be tough kind of in the beginning of trying to build a team, but not really knowing that identity, because that would be tough, because you're just, it's almost like the Wild West. Like, hey, just come on board and do your thing. And everybody's doing these different things, but all for this one goal. And so that could be that could be a challenge, man, early on. So props for getting through that and really identifying what that why was and what that company is going to be built on. So what is that? What is that for Select Construction? If somebody was to say, hey, what is the identity of the company? What is the brand? What does it stand for? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I'll start from the beginning. I mean, my why, I realized, I'm not money motivated. I never really have been. I came from nothing. And so if I had to go back to nothing, it wouldn't be anything new. But, I wanted to build a company that benefited other people. And what I saw was, in our industry, there's huge commissions available. I mean, there's guys in our industry that are millionaires. Mm-hmm. And when I say that I'm not money motivated, I also understand that money can be life changing for people. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was people could come in and make more money than they've ever made, and it changed their lives. It changed their marriage. It changed things for their kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've had stories of people that came to work for us, and before they came to work for us, they couldn't even give, single dads that had to do bologna sandwiches and ramen noodles whenever they had their kids on their weekends. And now they can take them to Disneyland and pay for all their select sports and all that cool kind of stuff. And so that was my motivation and my why. Mm-hmm. So we developed all of our core values around that, enjoying the place that they work, and not dreading Mondays, not looking forward to the weekend, because I did that for years and years and years, that you were just looking forward to Friday at 5:00 so that you could get off and have your break or whatever. Yeah. And I feel like we've developed a culture of people that, for the most part, on the weekends, they're like, okay, I'm ready for Monday. Because we do our Monday morning, our one time, we have one meeting per week because I'm not a meeting person. Mm-hmm. We do one meeting and it's on Monday mornings. Gets everybody pumped up, ready for the week. And so we do that on Monday mornings. And so I feel like everybody looks forward to that. The first part of our meeting, we go around the room and everybody gives a victory. So a victory for that week. What was the best thing that happened to you, or the biggest thing that stood out to you that was positive? And then a shout out to somebody on the team, somebody that helped you, or somebody that stood out on the team. Like you could tell that they're really hustling, or they did something that positive that stood out to you. Yeah. We go around the room and we do that. And then we kind of do housekeeping stuff. And then we do sales training. Yeah.
Man, that's, there's nothing like a good old office meeting, man. And I know you're not a meeting person. I love meetings just because, team meetings. I don't love just one-on-ones as much because I love to rally the troops. I'm kind of a pioneer in that way of like, I want to get people pumped up and go blaze a trail, and so that's kind of in my skill set as far as motivating people to go out and give their best and be their best. And so, in your sales process and working with your sales guys, because that's where the money's made right there for you, for your company. A company like yours, man, you depend on those guys going and building a relationship. So in that training process, what are some of those things that you try to pass on to them as like, this is the most important part of your job. This is the most important part of the sales process. Is it, the relationship building? Is it more of like, rehearsing cold calls and door knocks, or like kind of what's that look like? What's that training look like?
So we have a term that we use all the time. You'll hear it several times a day, within our group me. You'll see guys on their Facebook, they'll hashtag it. We call it doing all the things, all the things. We train our people to be marketers, basically. Our marketing manager, she has been in marketing for 25 plus years. She started with Sports Clips as their marketing person, when I think they only had like 7 or 8 locations, and grew them to like 1,500 or whatever it was when she left there. We were lucky to be able to recruit her from ServPro. but she's a genius when it comes to marketing. She really knows her stuff. And so what we've done is include her as part of our training. And when it comes to just to roofing, the training is it's easy. It's not that hard. Like I said, I only did it for 6 months before I started my own company doing it. And so that kind of training is kind of ongoing, but immediately what we want them to do is be able to market themselves, for them to understand that it's not just, there's some companies, all they do is door knock. There's some companies that all they do is SEO and give their guys leads to go close. We want to teach our guys to be their own marketers, that their network is their net worth. So go to networking events, use your social media like it's a tool that will bring you leads. Go door knock. If there's a build, go around the neighborhood and knock doors and say, hey, we've got this build down the street, and if there's any trash that blows in your yard or whatever, just let me know, and here's my card. By the way, has anybody inspected your roof? Yeah. Insurance agents, realtors, all those people that are that could be referral partners, like develop as many of those relationships as you can. And the people that we've seen be super successful, that are making, over 6 figures a year with our company, are the ones that have understood that and have gone out and done all the things. Yeah. So I would say there's no one thing that's like the most important within our training. Yeah. It's, I always say there's a mold for who can be successful in doing what we're doing. And it's somebody that is self-driven and has willpower. There's a difference between work ethic and willpower. Yeah. I've hired a bunch of guys who come from the oil field or from, some job where they're working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have all the work ethic you could ever want in a person. But it's a lot different whenever there's not somebody telling you, like, you have to be here at this time, you can't leave till this time. Right. And having to motivate yourself to get up and go do all the things that you need to do to be successful. There's a big difference. Yeah. And so anybody that treats it like a full-time job, they're successful. The ones that don't, they're not. Right. Now, in kind of looking at, you've been around a while, and everything's not rainbows and butterflies all the time for business. So what have you noticed over the years is kind of like your pinch points, like your tough spots, the places that you really have had to overcome some challenges and really are still maybe trying to, develop plans and procedures in place to really help make that a more smooth path? Is there anything any lessons you've learned and things you're trying to still improve today, Because on the outside, it looks like you're crushing it, of course. But as a business, looks like that. But as a business owner, I know that there's always things that you're trying to improve. So, in looking at 2022, we're here near the end of the year. There's got to be things on your radar like, here's what we want to do better next year. So, what do those things look like? I could tell you so many. First thing that comes to mind, like our business is. There's always a bell-shaped curve. And the more production means the more money you have to spend, which means that, with us waiting on insurance companies, our bank account could be up here, and we do all this production and collect all this money, and then we spend all this money, and then you're down here and you're waiting on an insurance company like, hey, we need to collect this money because we're down here. And then all that money kind of comes in at once, and you're back up here, and then it's kind of the same thing all the time. So learning that, over the years, that there's no reason to panic. We've been here before. This is just kind of part of it. Yeah. Always looking at AR, as long as okay, I've got X amount out that I've got to collect. It's going to come in at some point, and not panicking on that. But honestly, this year, man, when the freeze happened, our bread and butter is roofing. And that's what we know. That's what we do. We do remodeling and stuff like that, honestly, as a service. because we've realized that realtors and insurance agents are our two biggest referral partners. So if a realtor and insurance agent calls us and says, hey, I need you to go change out this mailbox, we're going to do it.
Right.
Knowing that
as a service,
them and we try to train them, make sure that they know that roofing is our number one thing. We'll do anything you ask us to. We're capable of doing anything you ask us to, but refer those roofs to us and we'll continue this relationship and it'll be fruitful for both of us.
Right.
Well, when the freeze happened, we signed, I think, 56 water mitigation jobs.
Yeah. I was going to say probably fixing pipes and stuff like that.
And like it wasn't fixing pipes. I mean, these houses were completely flooded. So it was like complete remodels.
Okay.
Which if they're complete remodels alone, we can handle that because we take some money up front. We do the job. We get paid as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
Right now we have about $500,000 in AR that the jobs are finished and we're just waiting on the insurance company and public adjusters to release the funds. So it kind of like, I'll never do it again.
Is there any rules on that? I mean, it seems like in a contract you have with them or somewhere, there's got to be some fine print of like, hey, you need to pay us by this time or you incur costs. There's nothing like that, huh? Mm-mm. So it's just like whenever they feel like it. Well, it could be a year
because our contract's not with the insurance company; it's with the homeowner, and the homeowner doesn't have any control over that either.
So, man, it seems like there'd be something that is out there that could be done about that. But man, that would be a tough place to be as far as budgeting and kind of getting everything in line financially for a company to keep. I mean, you keep paying people, and one thing that's interesting about your type of business, similar to Tourmax, a company that I'm a partner in as well, is it's a seasonal business. When you're working in the real estate market, our busiest times are, May through September, October, it goes down a little bit, and our lowest months are January, December, January kind of holidays when people just aren't moving, they aren't selling homes and that sort of thing. And so, what have you done, as a business owner, you look at that and you say, what can we do to supplement during those slow times? Is there any service that we can offer that's not dependent upon those times? Have you looked at that, and what have you implemented to kind of make up for those non-storm seasons and those slow periods of like, hey, how can we generate revenue in these off seasons? Or do you just embrace them and say, hey, let's go on vacation?
No. So we don't really use that term at all, storm season. We've eliminated that from our vocabulary. The past 2 years before this year, the fourth quarter was our best 3 months of the year for 2 years in a row. We just have this mindset of this is DFW, and it's a little bit different for real estate because you're right. I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do, but storm season or no storm season, there's damage roofs all over DFW, and they're just there for the taking. And the guys who have that mindset of, well, I'm just going to take November and December and January off because they're slow months and it's not storm season. That gives us an opportunity to go out and get what they're leaving behind. Right. And that's just always been our mindset. So we work all year round. We don't ever stop. And honestly, if you want to make a really, really good living doing this, then that has to be your mindset. Yeah. And that's kind of our culture too. We don't really entertain. I've had people that I've interviewed and they're in the roofing industry and they're super successful, but they only work 6 months out of the year. Yeah. And that's just not our culture. Yeah. We are full-time or no time. Yeah. You either got both feet in or both feet out. There's no really halfway to it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think that's honestly what sets you apart and why you've been around so long is that mentality of, hey, it's almost like during a market crash, that's the best time for like true knowledgeable investors. That's where they come out and start buying up houses.
is like, hey, when the housing market's not booming and prices aren't up, you kind of buy low. And it's almost that same kind of mentality of when everybody else is on vacation, we're out here eating, we're getting it done. Mm-hmm. And so, that's awesome, man. Awesome to hear. And, one thing I wanted to ask you about is the most interesting part of your story that I think to me that stands out is the fact that you didn't graduate high school, right? You kind of dropped out and got into the work early. Mm-hmm. So what was that like as a youngster, and with your parents and everybody involved in your life at that time, making that decision I'm just going to start making some money. I mean, there's something to that. Of course, we're not encouraging kids to go out and, hey, just forget about school and go chase your dreams. But to hear the success that's happened and come from that is pretty amazing. So tell me that story of like how that happened.
I mean, I don't know that I'm not encouraging that. I mean, I'll be really open. I have my daughter's 21 years old, and whenever she was deciding to go to school, I encouraged her to, if you don't know what it is that you want to do, then don't go rack up a bunch of debt.
Right. Yeah.
To just go, if you want to take a year off, take a year off, do whatever it is that you need to do to decide, like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is my life's purpose. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have that. And I hated school, like mm-hmm. from day one, from kindergarten. I hated school. I wasn't bad at it. When I applied myself, I was very good at it, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And and my home life and all of that kind of stuff was just conducive for me to just go to work so that I could be on my own and do my own thing. And
so how old were you at that time?
17.
So you're 17. So you're probably junior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're junior year. And where was that moment for you where it's like, you know what, I'm just going to get to work? What was that?
Well, I broke my neck junior year, 2-a-days.
For football.
For football. Okay. So that meant I couldn't play football anymore. Mm. And that was really my purpose for going to school. That was the only reason that I was there. And so after that happened, I just kind of quit going. And my mom was like, electricians make good money.
Yeah.
You're not really going to school. You got to do something.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to go to school, you got to help me with the bills or, pay your own way. So that's what I did.
That's crazy, man. That's cool. And I'm totally in the same boat when it comes to college, for sure. I'm honestly not a fan of college. I think it's for specific career paths that really need that extra training, specialized in that. But without getting off into a side tangent, I think college is just kind of a money making. It's a business, right? They're trying to make money, and they do that off athletes primarily, and they do that off people getting into debt to go there, and then ultimately not even using that degree for what they're doing anyways. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned that lesson myself, and most successful business owners that I've met didn't go to college. And so I've always kind of been a fan of think long and hard before you go, and really making sure that the career path you want to take has to have that, mm-hmm. Like a doctor or a vet or, some kind of specialized legal training or whatever. But yeah. There's so many entrepreneurs and people who've just killed it in the business industry, really doing what they love. And that doesn't take any amount of classroom training per se. It just takes getting out there and learning the craft. And so it's cool to hear that story and hear where you came from, man. And I
mean, in a perfect world, everybody would know, like, by the time they graduate high school, they would know, what is that one thing I would do even if I didn't get paid for it.
Right.
And that's really like the ultimate.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
I still don't sometimes know what I want to do when I grow up, man.
That's what everybody would know and they would do. And I honestly believe when you're young and you there's so much opportunity, you have very little responsibility. If you could just think of that one thing, like, this is what I would do, even if I didn't get paid for it, if I just had like a place to sleep and food to eat,
yeah,
I would do this job and I would be 100% happy with it. That's what I always wanted for my kids. Like, I don't care if you're wealthy. I don't care if you make lots of money. I'm going to make lots of money. I'll help you as long as you're doing something that's worthy, something that makes you fulfilled, and you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose, then do that.
Yeah.
I would rather have that for you than you go 100%. Rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars of college debt and be behind when you get out, and then still not know what you want to do.
100%, man. And that's what I've been encouraging my kids. Now, how many kids do you have?
6.
6 kids. Wow.
Well, I have 3, and my wife, we're like the Brady Bunch.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have 3 girls, and she has 2 boys and a girl. We have 2 17-year-olds right now that are actually graduating high school. And
is either one of them a girl?
Both of them are girls.
Okay. So, I'm going to have to get some intel on the teenage years, man, because my daughter
I have 3 girls, and one 21 and one 17, one's 9. So I have experience in the teenage girl.
So my
area.
oldest just turned 14, and she is really getting into those teenage years, and it's like coming out, and she's just you never know what version of her is going to come down the stairs in the morning, and it's like, man, what am I supposed to do with this child? And so I'm definitely going to have to hit you up on that, because it is wild, man, when you start. My son and I are outnumbered. We've got 3 girls in the house, and it's just me and him. And so it's just a lot of estrogen going on, a lot of attitudes at times. And it's like, man, but we're still blessed, man. Our kids do great in school, and they're good kids. But
yeah, I mean, I could give you tons of stories and advice, but the best thing is just stick to your guns, and this too shall pass.
Literal guns. Okay.
And this too shall pass. I mean, they go through that, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. But in my experience is at some point they snap to it and realize that, okay, this is, my dad loves me, my parents love me, they want the best for me, so I'm going to try to make them proud, and that's what my kids have done. Now,
you're a big hunter, right? You love going hunting. So do I. We kind of bond over that. Any of your kids into hunting outdoors?
Yeah.
So when tell me who's into hunting and kind of what y'all have been into as far as that. When's the last hunt you went on, and what's that been like for y'all as a family?
Man, business has been so crazy, and life's been so crazy. My 2 older daughters have been on a lot of hunts with me. My wife's or my stepson, our 8-year-old, he will be outside all the time. Yeah. If you let him. We haven't been on a hunt together yet, but it's coming. He's learning. He hasn't had a lot of experience with that kind of stuff, and so he's learned how to shoot a BB gun. He's 22, that kind of thing. So he's working his way up to be able to go out and do that stuff. Yeah. But
craziest thing, I'm gonna tell you this story is how my son shot his first deer. So he was 7 years old, and we were hunting on a buddy's ranch out in Haskell County, and so we're hunting, and he had management bucks, but they're nice bucks. I'm like, I'll come out and shoot a management buck on your property. I don't mind. I ain't gonna turn it down. So we go out there, and really the first morning that we're out there, try some of that. The first morning we're out there, I shoot a pretty nice management buck. I shoot a buck that they've been wanting to cull, and so we were planning to be out there 2-3 days, and so my son starts saying, "Hey, I want to shoot a deer now. I want to shoot one." And, he shot the heck out of his BB gun his whole life. He could shoot a dang tick off the dog at 50 yards with a BB gun. But it's like, man, the only gun I got with me, buddies, is 30-06. I don't think you're going to go from BB gun to this, your first try. And so he wouldn't leave it alone. He's just like, man, let me shoot a deer. We're sitting around camp that night. He's like, I could shoot a deer. He holds his gun up. He's like wobbling all over the place. I could shoot a deer, and we're like, man, whatever. And so Bridger, my buddy, he's got the ranch. He said, well, if this little 6-point comes out, it was a slick 6-pointer. It didn't have any brow tines. So he said, if this 6-pointer comes out, go ahead and let him shoot at him. I was like, all right, man, whatever. Yeah, I'm just hoping he doesn't come out, because I don't want to see my son get blown through the back of this blind by this 30-06.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, the next morning, I'm not even joking, it's not even hardly daylight. I don't even know how my son saw him. at 120 yards away. But he gets his little binoculars up there. He's looking. He's like, there he is, Dad. There he is. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go, man. And I look through there and I'm like, sure enough, it's the dude. And it's just legal shooting light. It was barely just before dusk. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so I propped the gun up there. We were in a box blind, up in the air. So it had a hard rest. So I just kind of rested the gun there. I'm like, you know how this thing works? He's like, yeah, be quiet. I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, what if you don't know what you're doing, And he's like, yeah, I do. I play this hunting game all the time. And I was like, I know where to aim and everything. I'm like, okay. So I kind of put my hands behind his back, because I don't want him to go on his butt, So I'm like, this guy's about to get blown away. And I don't know where this bullet's going to go, but we're out in the middle of Haskell County on 1,000 acres. And hopefully nobody gets hit with it. And so I hear the click of that safety come off. I'm standing there and I just boom. And I'm just like, what happened? So I look up and the deer's just crumpled up there at about 125 yards, just right where he was standing. And I'm like, my God, man. So we get out of the blind and he just goes running up to that thing. And he was so proud and he shot it right through the dang heart. Like you couldn't even, of course, looking back, he didn't know anything about kick. He didn't know anything about recoil. So he just left the hairs there and just freaking let it rip.
He didn't brace.
He didn't tense up, and pull that trigger off to one side or the other. He shot it perfectly. And I'm like, and I was like, that is the most proud dad moment I've ever had. That camp, that would be one of my greatest memories of my son of all time, is seeing him shoot his first deer, run up to it, and first words out of his mouth, he's like, can I field dress it, Dad? Can I do it? Can I do all that? I don't want you to do anything. And I'm like, heck yeah, man. So give him a knife. He did it. And it was just like the coolest thing. And I've never felt so connected to both him and God and nature at all one time. It was just like this beautiful moment of like, man, this is what fatherhood is. It's like really instilling things, trades and abilities and skills into your son at a young age. And that kid's a better shot than I am still to this day, man. I'm excited because I'm getting him into 4-H shooting stuff because he's got a knack for it, man. Like he'll do these little shows, put on these shows for people. We host a lot, and he'll get his BB gun out and he'll set up stuff around the backyard. He'll like do these little shows and shoot everything. You won't miss a lick. And it's like, man, my kid's got a little something for it, man. So I'm excited about it. So what's your next hunting trip look like, man? What are you looking for next? What are you,
I don't know, man. My buddy's got a place up in Jacksboro. He's got a bunch of axis and stuff. I'm talking about going up there and hunting.
Axis has been on my list, man. So if there's room for one more to come in, I'll bring the camera. We'll make it a good time. I'll bring the whiskey, of course, too.
All right.
But man, I'd love to get in on an axis hunt. That's some of the best meat. Axis and Elon and not Elon, Elon. I don't know how you pronounce it.
I've gotten into upland bird hunting though. I've got a bird dog. I just he's 10 months old. He'll go to training here after the first of the year. But went to Rough Creek a couple months ago.
I saw that. Pheasant hunting?
Pheasant and quail.
Okay, I saw that on your Facebook, man.
Yeah, that was a cool experience.
Was that a cool place?
Yeah. Oh, that place is phenomenal. I mean, it's pretty fancy. I mean, to be honest, the hunt was incredible, but the facilities in there at that place are just incredible. My ABC rep, Hunter, Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
He's the one that took us out on that trip. But that was my first time hunting with dogs.
Yeah.
And I mean, I dove hunt and all that stuff my whole life, but those pointers are incredible.
Is that what you got? A short-haired pointer? Short-haired pointer?
Yeah, GSP.
Yeah.
His name is Rip.
Nice.
He's awesome. But we're actually going to pick up another one on Saturday, a female named Maggie.
Action going.
Yeah, we'll try to make some of our money back.
Those aren't cheap, man. I've got a buddy. I need to hook you up with him. He's up in, he kind of bounces from Colorado to Idaho, I think. But he's a big upland bird guy. He's massive on social media. I mean, he's got a massive following. But I need to hook you up with him because we're supposed to go up. I need to go up and film something with him. And so it'd be cool to kind of pair that with what you're doing. And maybe we can all go up there and hang out with him because he breeds and trains and raises dogs, and he's got a really awesome setup and a huge following. Like I said, it'd be a cool thing. So maybe we could set that up. But man, it's been a pleasure to have you in, man. It's been a really cool experience getting to hear a little of your story. And man, I'm excited about what you're doing here in Burleson. As a fellow Burleson business owner, man, it's good to see guys doing it right. So thanks for all you're doing, and thanks for stopping in and drinking some of this Makers with me.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
anytime.
Until next time, man. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.